And today, in this video, we are going to be talking about if Elder Dragons were classified as normal monsters, like Fanged Beast, Wyvern, Flying Wyvern, Bird Wyvern, and classifications like that. So, the first generation has Kirin, Laoshan, Lung, and Fatalis. Now, I will be counting, if I say Kirin, I mean all three forms. Thunder Emperor, Orochi, and just regular Kirin. And same thing with Laoshan Lung and monsters like him. If it says both forms, I'm including forms means subspecies, variants, deviants, and all other items that are basically that name of that monster. So basically, if they have the name Kushala Daora, so Rusted Kushala Daora is a subspecies / whatever it is. There only is one exception to this, which is the Magalas, which I just put as their whole thing because they're pretty much the same wyvern at that point. So in the first generation, also forgot to mention, Flying Wyvern, since there is no actual classification for a dragon, like an actual dragon besides the Elder Dragon class, meaning the monster has 4 legs, 4 or more, around 3 or more, 4 or more legs with a set of wings. So Teostra, for example, Fatalis, for example. There are some weird examples. Now, these aren't Elder Dragons. These are just regular monsters. Like, there's Barioth, Nargacuga, and Tigrex, which are all counted as Flying Wyverns, which they're not. They're Pseudo-Wyverns, but that's not its own classification. So Flying Wyvern is going to be given to monsters that have, or Elder Dragons that have 4 legs and a set of wings, or multiple sets of wings, multiple sets of legs. For example, a frontier monster. We'll get to him in a second. He's at like a far end of the list, but he's pretty much as prime of an example as possible. It has 6 wings, I think 6 legs, 4 legs, something like that. But let's just get straight into this one. We have, first off, is Kirin, all 3 forms of Kirin. I would put them in Fanged Beast, because Fanged Beast is usually given to monsters that are animal-like, like specifically mammalian. You'll catch along with that. The only exception is there are some weird ones like, Zinogre being a fanged wyvern. There are a couple of those, and there's a couple of undecided between Fanged Wyvern and Fanged Beast. So you guys can discuss that in the comments, obviously, and see what you guys can figure out. But first one, obviously, like I said, Kirin, Fanged Beast. I think that's the only one you can really give it. It's weird. It's a cool monster, but a weird one at that. After Kirin, we have both forms of Laoshan Lung. I'd argue Brute Wyvern. And also, I'm breaking a couple of rules here because traditional, like Flying Wyverns traditionally are 2-legged, 2-winged, kind of just genuine wyverns at that point. Except obviously the exceptions, which are, Tigrex, Barioth, monsters like that. Now, Laoshan Lung, I don't know, I feel like Brute Wyvern's like the best I could give him. Next up is all 3 forms of Fatalis. I would argue Flying Wyvern. Again, I'm not going to make an entire new classification, and you'll realize this as we go on. There are no new classifications here. The newest one is Cephalopod, which came to us in Wilds, and there's only a few monsters that have that. So, as we go on, second generation would have both forms of Kushala Daora, which are Flying Wyverns, I would argue. Chameleos, Flying Wyvern. Lunastra and Teostra, Flying Wyverns. And Yamatsukami, which would be a Cephalopod. Now, please do excuse my pronunciation on the Frontier, Explorer, and Online monsters. I'm not that good. Also, same thing with stories. And I'm including every Elder Dragon, except the one from that comic. I don't entirely know what it's called or what it does, but I'm just not counting that one. I thought about, when I was making the video, I genuinely thought about, when I was doing research, I genuinely thought about not including Frontier and Online and all that other stuff, but we're going to go straight into that later on. You'll see that it wasn't actually as hard as I thought. So, third generation, next up, Alatreon is the first one. Again, flying wyvern. It's just going to be pretty much given to anything that has 4 legs and 2 wings. And or more wings and legs as well. Then we have both forms of Genmoran, a Leviathan. Now, I know a lot of people are going to disagree. But if you search up what classifies a Leviathan, I had to do this actually because I thought I was going to name them all brute wyverns. But it's anything that burrows or swims through any substance. Agnactor, for example, is a Leviathan. They also tend not to have wings, but they may actually have wings. I don't know. Namiella is the only really confusing one on that end because it could be a Leviathan, but it also could be a flying wyvern. It's weird. We're going to go into, next up is Cedius. Both forms of Cedius, Goldbeard and regular Cedius, are going in Leviathan. Amatsu, Leviathan, and Dire Moralis. This is a weird one, because Dire Moralis has, I believe, wings, but it spends most of its life in the water, if not all of its life in the water. So we're going to name it a Leviathan. Fourth generation. We have the Magalas, which are all flying wyverns / brute wyverns. They could be argued either. Dorenmoran, Leviathan. Again, same example as Genmoran and Cedius. We have, after that, Dalamador, both forms, Sha and regular. And those would be snake wyverns. And I am not going to lie to you. When I was doing research, I did not know Dalamador was an elder dragon. I genuinely thought it was a snake wyvern. But this would give snake wyverns, some backup. They don't have much. Next up is Gogmazios. I was arguing, I was trying to figure this out. You could argue brute wyvern, but it also flies. But, we also know flying wyverns don't have to follow that pattern, Nargacuga technically can fly, kind of. Eucantor and Eucanlos, great examples of that. They can't fly. Then after Gogmazios, we have Narcarchos, which would be a cephalopod. He's a cuttlefish. In real life, they're cephalopods. I feel like there'd be no difference in here. Both forms of Valstrax are both flying wyverns. All risen monsters, all risen elder dragons would be counted as flying. If you look at each of them, you can do that on your own. Or I might just include it in the video, pictures of each. They're all just regular elder dragons. Ones that have 4 legs, 2 wings. There's no, Kirans or anything like that. So they're all just flying wyverns. Ibushi, Narwa, and the All-Mother are all Leviathans. Both forms of Nergigante are flying wyvern. Xenojiva and Safijiva are both flying wyverns as well. Zoramagdaros, he could be argued because technically in his 3D model he has tiny wings underneath that huge volcano. But I'm going to say brute wyvern for the most of it. You could disagree and say he's, a Leviathan. I don't agree with that personally. But after him, we have both forms of Valhazak, which are both flying. Kulvtaroth is Fanged Beast, and also could be argued Fanged Wyvern as well. It's pretty much the same explanation for Zinogre. He technically, if Fanged Wyvern didn't exist, he'd most likely go in Fanged Beast. We know this. After that, we have Behemoth. He is Fanged Beast or Brute Wyvern. That's pretty self-explanatory. It was a hard debate. I was genuinely going to put Fanged Beast, but also Brute Wyvern would fit him. He's strong. Usually they have a bigger upper body, more muscular body in general. Big back legs, usually a large mouth or large facial features like Deviljho's, protruding teeth or whatever. Brachydios having that huge giant boomstick on its head, Velkhana, flying wyvern, obviously. Namiella could be argued Leviathan, and also flying wyvern, but I would generally say Leviathan's better for it. Now, Sharishvalda is a brute wyvern / Leviathan due to the fact that it burrows. Again, like I said earlier, if a monster burrows, it could technically be counted as a Leviathan. So, Sharishvalda and Geismagorn both have that Brute Wyvern / Leviathan because they could be counted as both. And both forms of Mount Zeno are Flying Wyverns. Now, on to Frontier. Please do pardon my horrible... I might even have to sound this out, like some of the names. I've never played Frontier. I don't know. I've been trying. I don't know how to do it. But anyways, let's get on to this. Vorsphiora, or Decifiora, is a Flying Wyvern. Both forms of Durmadira are both Flying Wyverns. Both forms of Azurian are Fanged Wyverns. Garuba is a Flying Wyvern. Both forms of Guan Zarumu are Flying Wyverns. Both forms of Harudom Murugu are both Flying Wyverns. Both forms of Inagami are Fanged Beast / Fanged Wyvern. Again, you're going to see that a lot as we go through these next 2 generations, or 3 generations. I'm really indecisive on Fanged Beast and Fanged Wyvern because it could work either way on a lot of these guys. Now, we have Kyo, Aru, Baru. Again, you can search that up. Try. Fanged Beast, Fanged Wyvern. Both forms of Rucodiora are both flying. Rabidiora, it could be counted as Flying Wyvern. Shantian could be a Fanged Beast / Leviathan. It was weird to tell. Toa Tasuka Tora would be a Flying Wyvern, and Yamakurai would be a Cephalopod. Online generation would have both forms of Mephistola Felon, which would both be Flying Wyverns. Both forms of Tartarus are Leviathans. Explorer generation would have Io Garudia, which would be Flying Wyverns. Marudon Damunto would be a Flying Wyvern / Brute Wyvern. Again, same thing with the Megalas. It's actually part of the Megala family, I believe. Nefgormat would be a Flying Wyvern, and the Stories generation has Versa Pytru, which would be a Flying Wyvern, Makili Pytru, which would be a Flying Wyvern, and Altera, which would be a Flying Wyvern. Now, if you disagree with any of these, feel free to comment down below and tell me that you disagree. I would go into depth with more of these, but this video would tend to be more than 2 hours long. I didn't mean for it to be, 15 minutes long, but I think this video, I think I did well on these classifications. If you would like to see more, obviously like, subscribe, and comment down below what you would like to see in the next video. And always, goodbye, good night, and have a good one.